Hey guys, welcome to San Diego. So everything is pretty settled in here for me. So I have the opportunity to get back to the bikes, and I've got a lot of projects built up, so hopefully a lot of good content on the way. I finally have the monkey back up on the stand and ready to do some work on this bike. About a year and a half ago, I did an installation of the Takegawa Super Multi DN meter, and it was a pretty cool replacement for this stock module. For when it showed, it had a tachometer, which the stock monkey display didn't have. That was the biggest thing. It also had a sensor to monitor engine temperatures, which was great. It had a clock to show the time, and it also had a gear indicator. The engine doesn't have an indicator switch inside of the engine itself, other than neutral, but the way that this mechanism works, it looks at your RPM and your speed to figure out which gear you're in. It's got this learning process. And it works pretty well, except for when you're stopped and not in neutral, it doesn't know which gear that you're in. If you are in neutral, the switch indicates and it shows that, but that's the only time it doesn't work. Otherwise, it's pretty useful. And I mean, honestly, I'm not looking at which gear I'm in most of the time, other than, if I'm going at it good and I want to know if I can grab one more gear from at the top, that's about the only time I'm looking at it. But it was a new feature that this one had, and I've enjoyed it quite a bit. I was actually browsing WeBike because I'm working on a couple of other projects that I'll have in upcoming videos, and I found that Takegawa released a Super Multi DN TFT meter, which looks really cool. And it's not going to focus. I'll link in the description below to the WeBike location where I bought it, but let me get this open and show you what it looks like. So the tachometer actually looks very similar to the Super Multi DN non-TFT version that I currently have, but it has looks like about a 3-inch TFT screen to display the speed, all of those other things that the current one that I have displays. It also apparently has a provision to show the air-fuel mixture, which would be a neat feature to have. I do have the port on the exhaust to run an O2 sensor, and it looks like I need to buy an additional harness to make that work, but cool feature to add eventually. The installation should be pretty easy because some of the cables that I need to run, like the sensor that goes to the coil, I already have on there. Same with the thermostat that runs to my oil plug. Those are all in place. So I think for the most part, it's just a new harness. It also comes with a different button set that has 2 buttons instead of the single button that I have on the current meter. And the big question, because I couldn't find it confirmed anywhere, is whether or not this does miles per hour. I couldn't find an actual manual online. All of the literature that was available only indicates kph. And I also found that this is very similar, if not the same thing as the Koso, I think it was called the RX3 module, that the outer housing looks the same. This obviously has the Takegawa logos on it, so I assume the electronics are the same, and the Koso one does do miles per hour. But let me go ahead and look through the manuals that it came with, because I see a bundle of papers. This is the most Takegawa thing ever. This seems to be how they always ship their manuals, in a little plastic bag with, I don't know, 15 or 20 individually folded, very neatly folded pieces of paper. These are all, of course, in Japanese. All right, so still no confirmation, although I do see here that there's a F for Fahrenheit. So if it does Fahrenheit, it probably also does miles per hour. All the other literature here is just stating kilometers per hour, but I'll go ahead and get it on the bike. Again, I'm assuming that it does do it because all of these instructions and the interface looks pretty similar to the Koso one, which apparently also does it. So let me clean up all of these individual pieces of paper that I tossed around, trying to figure out whether or not it does miles per hour. It looks like all the harnesses, again, are pretty plug and play, so I'll just kind of do a montage of the install. I need to pull off the headlight bucket to get into the wire harness, also to remove the 2 bolts that hold this up, and plug it all in and try it out. All right, so the old one came off pretty easily. There were just a few connectors. One was the main harness that plugged into the original speedometer unit. One of these two plugs was for the button. The other was for the temperature sensor. And this brown with red line on it was for the signal off of the coil. I'm expecting the new one to have hopefully a very similar interface, so I can just plug and play. All right, so this one comes with this nice aluminum mounting bracket with these two buttons to, I guess, manage the functions on the speedometer. Also has a little rubber grip deal to prevent it from slipping. And I'll remove, I have this previously just a little single button right here that was a lot harder to manage, so that should be a neat add. And the kit has this mounting bracket. You know, in looking at this mounting bracket, I was thinking, I'll show you with the camera here. I really liked how on the meter that I just took off, it was centered right here with this arch in the front of this, steering bridge. The way this mount is going to work, it's going to put this dead in the center, but I thought it'd be neat. Actually, let me turn the camera the other way. I kind of have the camera awkwardly positioned, but I wanted to show you what I was talking about. So the way this meter worked, it was right here, and the curvature of the meter itself kind of lined with this little curvature they have at the top of this fork bridge. The new meter, the way that it looks like the mounts are going to line up, puts this dead in the center, which is neat and all, but I liked the way that, again, this cutout works. So I'm thinking I may try to fashion my own bracket so that the tachometer is in the center, and then it just has the TFT offset to the right. I know there's something to say about symmetry, but I think there's something to say about lines lining up as well. So for now, it's going to mount like this with the stock mount, but I may try to do something custom so it's offset a little bit like this. All right, so yeah, we have the bracket and a bunch of cables. All right, so this brown wire I'm not going to need to use. This is for connecting to the coil to pick up the RPM. I'll just leave this to the side so that we can use it for my other meter on the next install. Okay, and then this main harness looks good. It's got the OEM harness on the inside here, and then this is going to be for my button, for my temp sensor, and for the RPM sensor. This goes back into the back of the new Super Multi DN TFT meter. And this is an extension cord and the temp sensor, which I already have on the bike for the original one that I had. So I will be able to either sell or use the old meter on another bike, and I already have all of the accessories kind of neatly set up. All right, so unfortunately it looks like the temperature sensor plug and the extension cord is slightly different on the new device. And I guess it makes sense since, again, it seems that this is a product made by Koso, or Koso and Takegawa are buying from the same manufacturer, and that it's probably a different manufacturer than the other one. But I'm going to need to change this cable out with this one. It's not very difficult since this is, for the most part, a naked bike. I can see the wire running all the way through, but I'm going to swap that out so that I can finish connecting it up. I'd say I should have read the directions, but they're in Japanese, and I'm figuring out as I go. It looks like I can run either the temperature sensor or the AF sensor. So it comes with extensions for both. Since I don't have the AF O2 sensor right now, and actually the one that I do have for the A-Racer kit has a different plug than this one does. Can't even test it out, so I may end up running AF later, but for now I'm just going to go ahead and run the temperature sensor. All right, so I started off first putting this switch on this side, which reminded me the mistake that I made when I put the switch on the first place, putting it on this right side. Being a motorcycle and needing throttle on my right hand, it's my left hand that's free, so if I put it anywhere, I want it to be on the left side of the handlebars. When I tried to put it here first, though, at least on my bar, this is where it starts to curve up, so it was at an angle. So I decided to put it on the inside here. The fork clamp that I have is open, which I think is, these are probably from the Grom. I know the standard Monkey one has a bridge that connects the two, but it's a nice flat piece here. And so being on my left side now, I have access to these two buttons relatively easily without having to cross all the way over like I did with the button placement I had on the original one. So I'm going to get this cinched down. I've got the new cable run for the temperature sensor, so I should have everything to plug into these 3 prongs, button it up, and we'll turn it on. All right, so that was actually a pretty simple install. Usually there's more hiccups than I expect, other than having to replace one cable that you would have if you were going to do a clean installation anyway. Everything went according to plan. It seems like a pretty quality piece. The only thing that I am skeptical of is the waterproof worthiness of this cable, since there's some cable housing here, but up here there's exposed wires. So I may do something to make that a little more waterproof. I don't ride this bike too much in the rain anyway, but in case, especially now that I live here in Southern California, it's probably a pretty safe bet that this is good to go, but I'll still do something to clean that up a little bit. I don't like seeing the wires right here. All right, I've got the camera situated over the bike so that you can see it well. I turned off the lights above me though, just so that it's not glaring as much. My favorite part of all of these things is removing this protective piece of plastic. And let's try it out. All right, so I actually went ahead and looked at the directions. I couldn't read it, but it was clear from the pictures that if you hold the top button for a few seconds, it'll go into the simple setup for date and time. But that if you want to go into the more in-depth setup, you hold both buttons for a few moments. And then you get this. So units, and I'm going to hold the bottom button for a second. Big money, miles per hour. There we go. Fahrenheit. What else do I got? So the brightness, overspeed, speed warning if I'm going faster than 38 miles an hour. Let's go ahead and adjust this. How about you let me know if I'm going over 100 miles an hour? All right. Next, shift light. So let's say at 10,000, I want a steady light. And at 9,500, you can give me a heads up. Temp warning, 212 Fahrenheit. Let's see. $210, let me know what's going on. Low voltage, looks fine. Fuel, sure, warn me there. Oil change trip function, sure, tell me every 600 miles. ABS, I do not have ABS on this bike, so I will turn this off. Overspeed, slow flash. Temp warning, fast flash. Voltage warning, fast flash. Okay. Tire circumference. Gear function on. So there's this learning function. You have to actually be riding the bike to set that up. RPM, pulse, 1 signal high act. Not sure, we'll see how the RPM acts. Actually, when I turned on initially, it looked okay, but I can make adjustments there. I believe 390, I think it's called ohms, was the setting on the old bike. Yeah, this is where I can turn AF on if I have an AF sensor, but it also clarifies there that you can't run AF and temp sensors at the same time, which is a shame. Power test. I guess it has some built-in power system. I can update my mileage here. All right, and then you can adjust the clock and everything else. So, pretty excited. It looks like everything is working correctly. Let me put on a helmet and go for a ride. All Alright, so I've been making some tweaks to the settings because it doesn't really make sense to me what the tire circumference and position or whatever that p-value is, but I think I'm pretty close. I'm going to go up on this road here where I can hold the same speed for a little bit and confirm that the GPS is matching what the speedometer is displaying. It's holding at 33. That looks pretty good. I'm going to pull over and check the RPM now. It seems that this has a night and day feature. As I go through under shadows, it seems to be flickering back and forth. So let me show you guys what settings that is. I'm using the stock Monkey tires still. But for the speedometer, I'm using a circumference of 605 millimeters and a sensor point of 27p. Again, I'm not sure what that even really means, but I've tried different settings until I've got it as close as it seems to be. So as I write it more, if I find I'm a little bit off, I guess I can change the amount of millimeters here. But as you saw, it's within half a mile per hour, which is definitely good enough. So then the other thing I wanted to confirm is RPM. And let's see, to do that, I'm going to fire up the A racer. Let's see. And so I can see what the RPM is coming off of the ECM versus what it's displaying here. Alright, and actually at idle it's showing about 1.8 and I'm getting 1.8 here, so that feels good. Let's 6,000, 7,000. That warning is though. Sorry, you probably couldn't hear me because I had my mask up. I'm gonna have to go through the warnings to see. Alright, RPM seems to be okay. And so the RPM that I have it set at is a pulse of 0.5 and signal is high act. I assume high acting or something. Gear function on. So now I'm going to try to get it to learn which gear I'm in. Here we go. got a stoplight, and it also wanted a 5th gear, which I don't have. Oh, it's the fuel warning light. That's what's bugging. Alright, well, I understand that. Okay, so it looks like it's the fuel light that's not happy. And I had that at 390 hertz, which I believe is correct. If I really have 2 bars of fuel and 3 bars, now that I'm pointed downhill, I think it's giving me that. I think when I was earlier going uphill, it was freaking out. Alright, let's see if these gears actually work then. First gear, second gear, third gear, fourth gear. It seems to work okay. And I don't have a 5th gear, so I think I'm alright. The crazy thing about California is that everything's not flat. There's hills everywhere. It makes for a much more entertaining ride. Okay, so for not having a manual, I'd have to say that was still relatively easy to get set up. The gear selection process was very easy. Just make sure you've got enough runway to get through all 4 of your gears. For the RPM, it was just a 0.05 and high act was the setting. And then for the wheel diameter, I think it was P27, and then a little over 600 millimeters for the diameter. If you're running the Monkey, it's probably the same if you've got the stock tires. If you're running the Grom, it's probably somewhere similar to there, probably maybe slightly lower, but if you start at the 600 millimeters, it probably is just minor adjustments from there. Anyway, still have some more plans for this bike. I've also got a couple of other bikes that I'm about to really get going on, and lots of stuff on the way for the 22 Grom as well. So anyway, thank you everybody for watching. Stay tuned for more videos and keep on building.